Imagine standing in a vast open field, gazing up at the sky just before dawn. The morning air is still. The stars are beginning to fade, and the eastern horizon slowly glows gold. This day feels different, not just because it's longer or warmer, but because the Earth itself is about to perform one of its most elegant dances with the sun, at exactly 2:40 Universal Time Coordinated. Something subtle yet profound happens. The Earth, tilted on its axis at about 23.44 degrees, reaches a point in its orbit where the North Pole is tilted closest to the Sun. This moment, precise to the second, marks a cosmic turning point. The Sun reaches its northernmost position in our sky, directly above the Tropic of Cancer, an invisible circle of latitude that sits 23.44 degrees north of the equator. This event is known as the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, the longest day of the year, and the winter solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, the shortest. It's a dividing line, a celestial mirror, where half the planet basks in sunlight and warmth, and the other turns inward toward chill and shadow. The Earth doesn't orbit the Sun perfectly upright. Instead, it's tilted like a spinning top, leaning at 23.44 degrees relative to the plane of its orbit. This tilt is everything. It's the reason we have seasons. Without it, Earth would experience no significant variation in daylight or temperature throughout the year. Every place would get about the same amount of sunlight every day. Because of this tilt, different parts of the Earth receive varying intensities and durations of sunlight throughout the year. When the Northern Hemisphere leans toward the Sun, as it does on June 21st, it bathes in more direct sunlight, and days grow longer. When the Southern Hemisphere leans in, it's December 21st, and the reverse occurs. During the June solstice, the sun's rays hit the Northern Hemisphere most directly, meaning sunlight is more concentrated and lasts longer throughout the day. That's why this solstice is celebrated as the first official day of summer in places like North America, Europe, and Asia. Only on this single day does the sun stand directly overhead at noon for people living along the Tropic of Cancer, an imaginary line that circles the Earth, passing through countries like Mexico, Egypt, India, and Saudi Arabia. When the sun reaches this position, it's said to be at its zenith, the highest point in the sky. For observers at this latitude, shadows disappear at noon. The sun is not leaning south or north, it's directly above, casting no slanting lines, no elongated silhouettes. This only happens once a year, on the June solstice. Meanwhile, at higher latitudes like Europe or Canada, the sun's arc stretches across the sky longer than any other day. In cities like Oslo, Copenhagen, and St. Petersburg, daylight can last for 18 to 20 hours. Above the Arctic Circle, it never sets at all. A natural phenomenon called the midnight sun. Travelers in these northern regions can literally watch the sun circling the sky, never dipping below the horizon. In contrast, on the same day in the Southern Hemisphere, places like Buenos Aires, Cape Town, or Sydney experience the shortest daylight hours of the year. In Antarctica, the sun doesn't rise at all, and darkness reigns, enveloping the icy desert in polar night. While the solstice marks a climactic shift in the sun's position, it doesn't necessarily mark the hottest or coldest day of the year. There's something called the seasonal lag, the delay between the longest day and the peak of summer heat. Land and oceans take time to absorb the increased solar energy. That's why, even though June 21st receives the most sunlight in the Northern Hemisphere, the hottest months are usually July and August. The same delay applies in the Southern Hemisphere, where the shortest day, June 21st, doesn't immediately bring the coldest temperatures. Those come weeks later, as the cumulative loss of solar energy cools the surface, especially over land masses. But the solstice is more than just a matter of sunlight. It is encoded into ancient calendars, sacred monuments, and cultural rituals, long before satellites or scientific instruments. Early civilizations recognized this celestial moment. In the British Isles, Stonehenge stands as a prehistoric observatory, aligned so that the rising sun on the June solstice shines directly into its central altar. In Egypt, the pyramids of Giza also show astronomical alignments that correspond to the solstices and equinoxes. In Peru, the Incan site of Machu Picchu includes a structure called the Temple of the Sun, whose windows precisely framed the solstice sunrise. The solstice served as a guidepost for agricultural societies. It told them when to plant crops, prepare for harvest, or honor the rhythms of nature. Festivals were born from these solar events, many of which still echo today. Midsummer festivals in Sweden and Finland involve bonfires, flower crowns, and all-night celebrations. In ancient China, the solstice was associated with the balance of yin and yang, and marked the beginning of the yin phase, a time of introspection. In India, this celestial moment aligns closely with International Yoga Day, symbolizing unity with cosmic cycles. The solstice doesn't occur on the same date every year. While most often on June 21st, it sometimes shifts to June 20th or June 22nd, depending on leap years and Earth's slightly irregular orbit. That's because a year is not exactly 365 days. It's about 365.2422 days. Our Gregorian calendar compensates with leap years, but some drift remains, and astronomers must calculate the solstice's timing based on Earth's real-time orbital position. In 2025, the solstice occurs precisely at 2:40 Universal Time Coordinated, depending on your local time zone. This moment may fall in the late night of June 20th or early morning of June 21st. The global nature of time adds an extra dimension to this universal moment. You may also wonder how this relates to equinoxes, the point in March and September when the sun sits directly above the equator and day equals night worldwide. The solstices, by contrast, are the extremes, maximum tilt, maximum difference in sunlight between hemispheres. These four events, 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes, divide the year into astronomical seasons. They are the spine of our calendar, the punctuation marks of planetary motion. Without them, time would lose much of its natural rhythm. Solstices also offer something poetic. The word itself comes from Latin, sol, meaning sun, and sistere, meaning to stand still. For a few days before and after June 21st, the sun appears to pause at its northernmost height before reversing direction. This illusion of stillness reminds us that even in the vast cosmic machinery, there are moments of quiet turning, thresholds in time. This pause is symbolic. It invites reflection. In the north, it's the apex of growth, warmth, and expansion. In the south, it's the quiet of winter, introspection, and preparation for rebirth. It's not just about light, but about the balance of cycles, growth and retreat, light and dark, motion and stillness. Today, we can calculate the solstice down to the second with atomic precision, and yet its emotional and symbolic power remains. It draws people outside, into gardens, onto mountaintops, along beaches, or simply to a window where they watch the angle of the sun change, just slightly. In modern cities, we may forget to look up, to notice shadows at noon or the subtle tilt of the sky. But the solstice reminds us, we are part of a greater rhythm. We live not just by clocks, but by the geometry of sunlight, by the shape of the planet we stand on, and by the ancient celestial paths it travels each year. Every June solstice is an invitation to pay attention, to realign with natural time, to celebrate the fact that our world, tilted and turning, is alive with cosmic choreography. So today, as the Earth leans closest to the sun, take a moment to feel the change. Notice how long the day lasts, how high the sun climbs, or how short the shadows grow. This moment is fleeting but meaningful. The Earth just turned a corner in space, and you were here, watching it happen.